Hello and welcome to Facing the Gates. I am Bailey.
I'm Michael.
And I'm David.
And today we're doing an episode called Reflections on God, because the last few episodes we have discussed many of the popular arguments for God's existence and debated the existential questions of life. Maybe to satisfaction of some, maybe we didn't answer the questions enough to some people.
And to others, we might just be a bunch of bumbling idiots getting into deep rabbit holes.
Yeah, so anyway, we opened the can of worms. Multiple cans. Very
Several.
Existential cans. So I figured now would be a good time to kind of just go back over the past few episodes and kind of just form our thoughts and finalize everything. But before I do that, there's one thing I wanted to amend about the last episode, and the last episode was Love and Beauty. There was one thing, one example Michael mentioned where he was like, well, what if you are, because I was saying emotions have a practical purpose they're essentially telling you something. Like if you're feeling something bad, then it's a reaction to something.
Stimuli.
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned, well, what if you're depressed and your brain's telling you to just go jump off a bridge or something? I probably should amend my statement by saying that the assumption is that your brain is functioning normally and that you aren't...
there aren't chemical imbalances.
Yeah, there aren't chemical imbalances and you aren't deficient in any way. If you're deficient, obviously you need to get help, but...
Please.
Yeah, I didn't want to make it seem like I was just brushing off mental illness as, you know, like obviously you need help if you need help, but like assuming that your chemicals are balanced in your brain when you get angry or when you get sad or when you are happy or whatever, you know, that is a reaction to something, which is usually telling you it's like a compass, which I mentioned. Obviously I said that, but the amendment was basically, unless something's not right.
Yeah, basically, if we were to include mental illness, chemical deficiencies, or even some other things that complicate kind of the brain,
Yeah,
it would make it such more difficult and convoluted, where this is kind of like that baseline for kind of emotions and how it works.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what I wanted to do for the rest of this episode is I wanted to basically go back over each episode that we've done on the arguments for God's existence and then kind of see what our final thoughts are, and how things have changed, or if they've changed or whatnot. So regarding the episode on morality, I think we all agreed that morality must have an objective source, but I think we disagree on what that source is. So what would you guys say about that?
I mean, pretty much that's the conclusion we all got to, because we don't know exactly, like in my example would be some form of evolution within humankind. Don't know exactly when that started, how it came, but with evolution meaning just kind of throwing darts at a wall and seeing what works. That's kind of how she goes.
What about you?
I still feel in the fucking middle, where it's like possibly evolution, possibly a greater thing, maybe a little of both.
Could be, yeah, deistic evolution.
Mm-hmm. I guess my main challenge, which I still think is valid in this case, my main challenge is if you're saying it came from evolution in some form, I just don't really think that works. I think if you have morality in an objective sense, you have to have it grounded in an objective source. Because if you ground it in evolution, that's random and chaotic and not objective.
Yeah. But the kind of why it works is, oh, this does this. There's a kind of objective benefit towards it in some sense, where it's just like, I don't know exactly what to do, but I'm going to do this and see if it benefits, and if not, we all die.
I mean, kind of like two animals make a beautiful baby. all right, that beautiful baby makes more beautiful babies. Something that keeps us going, an evolutionary sense, so we can keep on bringing it down and down and down.
Yeah, because it doesn't necessarily have to have a benefit, but what doesn't have a big negative interaction continues.
So basically what you guys are saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because basically what you're saying is you don't know where that objective source of morality comes from, but you know it works, so you don't question it.
I mean, essentially, yes, because it's trying to answer stuff so deep in the past and just kind of build stuff from the ground up, as kind of we've talked about with evolution and other scientific thoughts. It's taking all the pieces and trying to complete the puzzle when you don't have everything figured out.
Well, the only thing is, I don't think you can... This is a philosophical question. This is not something you can solve scientifically. You can't really use science to figure out where morality came from. I don't really think those two are compatible. I mean, you can compare like different societies and moral groups and do tests on that, but the problem is you're going to have a difficulty going from an is to an ought, because science will tell you what is, but it doesn't tell you what ought is. What it can tell you what someone's moral views are, but it can't tell you how they got there.
Yeah.
So
And
that gap has to be filled in philosophically.
Yeah, and the only way I could think of testing that would be so inhumane.
Well, I mean, you could. I'm not. I guess I was probably being vague.
I know you're not saying you can't test it.
Well, you can test you can test the extrinsic actions of someone and put them to a scale on morality, on some. I don't know. I mean, like there are tests you can do. I'm blanking right now, but like there are tests you can do to measure the way someone acts in a moral way, but that's just going to be a description of their moral behaviors. That's not, and I can't think of a specific example of a test.
I can think of one.
I guess you could say like some mental health screenings do kind of have that morality factor, because like certain mental illnesses are very well. We'll have like kind of apathy and stuff like that, where people just are void of feeling for others and that kind of compassion, so they don't care. Their morals towards other people are null and void.
Sure.
Man, one thing on note, kind of how I came to my basis with the idea of evolution playing a part in it is looking into like early hominids. There's kind of a little bit of, because there's ones that like were old skeletons that had like scoliosis, broken legs, and carbonadium. Turns out they're probably just as old as their other pact before they all died out. So it seems like somewhere in the line there's when at least like morality in the sense of like taking care of your fellow person, stuff like that, started coming into fruition. Yeah,
so I mean, that's a good example, but that proves my point. That just shows you what is. That doesn't show how it came about.
Yeah, it's...
I mean, you can infer that like, oh, well, you know, they started dying, so they didn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, the problem still exists. You can't derive an ought from an is.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, the only way you could really test it is just get a bunch of newborn babies, create a colony.
Cults have tried that. It does not work out well.
Exactly.
Here comes Michael's unethical.
It's not humane.
Here comes Michael's unethical
actually,
science
a
experiment.
good study to do is look into feral children. It's absolutely terrifying and sad.
They're animals. They're not humans.
In some, they serve human needs and human wants, but the kind of morality and all that is null and void, as social interaction is very big on how you gain your morals.
Yeah, kind of like the two little girls and Mama.
Yeah.
They was wild.
Oh, good.
Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Such
but
a good movie.
that was creepy.
It made me cry a little bit at the end, though. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
but
lie.
there's all, I guess, as from an atheist point of view, with no clear like reasoning and like the ought,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just kind of one thing with everything we've been talking about. As there's not a very philosophical side, I'm trying to find like scientific, very clear cuts for like, oh, this happened. It might not necessarily be the reasoning behind it's happened, but it happened, so something before it caused it.
I love how I'm the one who brings up that ethical stuff, and you're the atheist.
Well, everyone
You're sitting there in the corner
well,
stewing
everyone
on
has
some
morals,
evil
Michael.
ideas, I'm
Everyone
sure.
has morals.
Not everyone,
Yeah, not
Well,
everyone.
yes, I actually you're right, but most
but
people.
most things have morals.
All right. So to wrap up on this one, basically, obviously, I believe morality is grounded in God because God is an objective source. Where would you guys ground your morality in? For the listeners at home that get confused and don't know where our positions are, because we're confusing sometimes.
I'm still confused and kind of in the middle. If you want, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
So you don't know where morality come from, and
I see
and
it-
you don't have like a dog in that race where you're gonna think like, I think it's this.
Yeah.
You don't have an
I see
educated
it could
guess right
go
now.
either way or in the middle. It's like a whole spectrum. It's not just the A B. It's like A through Z, where it could be somewhere little God, little this, kind of fluid.
So you're gonna pull a Matt Dillahunty and say, I'm not convinced.
I'm not convinced either way.
Well, I mean, I
All
did
right.
give you a good
Agnostic
convincing-
is being agnostic.
Yeah.
Go figure. Light bulb moment.
But at least we're being honest. Because,
Yeah.
like, as I said, I don't know the exact set thing that caused it, but just from looking and stuff, inferring and trying to make reason out of it, out of the scientific discoveries. And scientific discoveries are always changing. That might be entirely wrong, but only time can tell.
Gotcha. All right. Well, the next thing was the episode on consciousness. So I think we all agree that obviously humans have a unique conscious experience, but we kind of disagree on how it came about.
Yeah, just like with morality.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of these episodes
Kind
follow
of
a
tie in
trend.
together in a
Yeah.
way.
Like I'm very much on, like, at least for now, until, say, better theories or theories that improve upon the ideas, evolution would have to take a part in it, in my eyes, because something about consciousness did wonders for humankind.
Yeah, that's just a giant question mark in
Yeah.
in science, especially. I don't think, because I think that's
It's such a hard.
I don't think science has explained consciousness.
Yeah,
And I mean,
because-
the best,
yeah.
like you said, like the best theory, the best secular theory is evolution. But we all know that evolution isn't a one size fits all.
It's a very flawed system, and it just kind of helps give the cliff notes of, oh yeah, this is how stuff is supposed to happen. It doesn't always happen like that.
It's like a skeleton rubric of how things go.
I think that's like kind of the beautiful thing about it. Is sometimes you know how, but you can't quite explain it.
Yeah.
And consciousness is definitely one of those things. Like we know what it is, we experience it uniquely
we know it exists.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, for example, there's people mapping the brain sequence, basically.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
Okay, I will. That looks like a low res horror movie. When
But
they
what
play
they're
it back.
doing is using lab rats. When they're done testing on them and whatnot. I'm kind of iffy about that, but they'll use like a piece of their brain and scan it deep enough, because all brains have similar features. And then from what we know about the brain, build it. And then there's other ones that just start from the ground up, just tossing all that aside.
But I'd say that is cool as shit. If you
Yeah.
haven't seen it, bro, it just
It was. Are you talking about the thing where they? Well, you're talking about a rat brain, but I think I heard recently that I saw like a supercomputer replicated 1 second of the human brain activity.
Yeah, like what I'm talking about, like started decades ago.
Oh, okay.
Where that's very much new thanks to like AI testing and neural networks, which are crazy math. They're not programmed, they're math. And it is very crazy because even if it says that gains consciousness, we wouldn't necessarily know because we can't speak to it.
But see, my thing is that terrifies me because I really don't want you guys to be able to look back in my brain like, he saw that. Oh, he was here. That's what creeps me out about it.
Yeah, if we figure out where consciousness goes, we can...
Well, the big thing here is we assume that consciousness is in the brain. And we're trying to do all these brain scans because...
but it's in the stomach.
No, I'm not saying like it resonates anywhere in
you're
physically.
saying it's in the spirit.
It could. Okay, so... and I can show you guys a video later. But there's a theory... that essentially it's kind of a combination that like your mind, your brain is projecting information, but it's projecting information from something. And the idea is that your soul is where you and your memories and your personality, where all these distinct things that make you exist, and then that is projected essentially into your brain. I know this sounds like drugs.
It feels like VR.
Yeah, this sounds like stoner
I can
stuff,
buy an Oculus now.
But basically, in your brain, when you have the certain parts of your brain that do certain functions, these are projections. These don't mean that these parts of your brains are the complete end where they originate from. This is just what we see. It's kind of like the is-ought kind of thing. It's like what you see happening in your brain when you do a scan, that's what it is. But where it comes from is deeper, essentially. That was probably a really butchered way of explaining it.
So basically, in simpler terms, your keyboard, your mouse, your monitor, your peripherals are kind of like your body, your soul, where the brain is like your computer. It's processing everything and delivering it to you.
Yes, essentially.
So we're like mechs.
We're like what?
So you're
like
saying
information is being sent back and you're controlling it, but it's not necessarily here. So you're just controlling this.
So you're saying we're in a simulation and we're just a giant cloud server.
We're like drone robots. Like fucking...
Or you could just call it a soul. You don't have to be weird about it.
Yeah.
No, I want to pretend I'm Optimus Prime.
Okay.
Right, he was the coolest.
You're Bumblebee.
You can pretend to be whatever you want.
I mean, Bumblebee's cool as hell, too. He was a sweet Camaro. He looked at busted to start with, but he came back shining. You know the DMV would not let that pass.
Michael's gone on another one of his weird things.
The first Transformer movie with a Shia LaBeouf in it. And what was it, Megan Fox?
Yeah, Megan Fox.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap this part up, I think my main point from the episode when we recorded it was I argue that like consciousness can't come from non-consciousness. I don't think it can evolve in the sense that we're talking about. I think it's logical to presume that consciousness comes from a conscious source, which is God. What about y'all?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just big question, as we've stated, because it's such an, as we said, it's such an abstract thing to comprehend and think about. And then, as we said, differing levels of consciousness for, like, say, dog. A dog knows what it is. It's a creature.
Does a dog know what it is?
I mean, they've done this. And
Are
dogs can recognize themselves.
Dogs can recognize you.
They know their habits. Like when the little puppy wakes up, she goes outside.
Yeah, but a dog's not going to consider going to college, you know.
Yeah, but
You don't know that. There's doggy college. Some dogs are very well trained.
I'm pretty certain we've talked this exact same conversation.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain you said the exact same thing in the episode.
There are some well trained. They can recognize heart attack, stroke, Alzheimer's.
But what I'm getting at
diabetes.
is these animals are not on the same level as
they're not on the
big
same
brain
kind
us.
of tier of consciousness as
Yeah,
we are.
but they can have a stream of consciousness.
Okay, Michael.
Do all dogs go to heaven?
Some dogs don't deserve to, okay? If they do, I'll be upset. I'm gonna go up to the big man. Hey, that dog just bit people. It's just mean to be mean. Great family. Spoiled him running. But he was just the meanest dog. Bit the little girl's finger off.
And then
And if he's up there, I'm gonna be upset. Because he's gonna bite me.
he's just waiting at the pearly gates for you.
And you start some more sinning, if that's the case. But back to the topic.
All right, Michael, are you... I was waiting on you to bring it back. So let's wrap up consciousness. Where do you think it comes from? I already said where I think it comes from. Everybody knows. There's arguments for God's existence is the whole point of... But go ahead.
Again, I can see it coming from a lot of things. I haven't really dialed it down to one quite yet. Because for all we know,
Because you're the agnostic. You
you
gotta say,
click
I
in
don't
it.
know.
Or you just click off one day. All electricity in your brain stops going. You just... You're unplugged.
And then you find out the DMT theory was true.
Or wasn't. Joe Rogan might be wrong.
I mean, that theory was out way before him.
Yeah.
But then there's like weird theories about like monkeys taking mushrooms
But
and all that.
back to the...
Yeah, let's, we're going on. So you...
I again, same with...
Same with the morality.
Yeah, it could come from a bunch of different stuff. And I'm not saying any of them's necessarily wrong right at this point. Except I don't believe we're in a simulation, so that's really it. Gotta jab that one back in.
Oh, we'll get to that. Don't worry. Mm-hmm. So I assume you're probably going to say evolution, most likely.
Evolution...
It's your best guess.
It's my best guess. It's probably not correct. There's probably a way better way of describing it and figuring out, but we aren't there technologically yet to be able to figure it out. And even if we do, who's to say we would understand it, because it's such an higher abstract idea. And we could think we have it, but we could be wrong. So yeah, evolution is
I want to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
What if you can't get there technologically because the best explanation is God and you can't scientifically explain God?
The pursuit of knowledge is infinite and painful.
What if everybody's just too stupid to find it out?
That's a dodge.
What if there's
It's a
just
non-response.
What if there's one guy we all thought were crazy? Like he's in a mental hospital somewhere, but he's right.
Well,
He's got it all figured out.
like for example, in my lifetime, we're not going to figure it out.
Yeah.
But if those who believe it is, say, evolution or something like maybe scientifically proven, just like with someone heavily tuned religiously, looking and finding solutions through religion, they will keep pursuing that answer even if it's on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's not necessarily a good thing, but it's how we all do. I mean, because one person could think 2 + 2 is 4, and then the other person could think it's 5,
But
and
they're
they'll work
wrong.
out the fig. Yeah, they'll try to explain themselves until they die.
But the question, could we figure it out in your next lifetime? You know, this reincarnation thing might be true.
If reincarnation is true, I need to reevaluate everything if I remember it.
I think if reincarnation was true, we would already remember a lot of things, but we don't.
Or
So.
we could be new souls.
What if God's just like, you don't need to remember that? Like a game
What's the
plus.
point? What's the fucking point?
No,
of
it's
that?
like a recycle bin. Everything gets wiped and you're just tossed back.
All right.
It's like a used hard drive.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next thing. The next episode was a double episode. It was the origins of life in the universe.
Dun dun dun.
So I think we all pretty much agreed that science has gaps in its explanation on origins, like the Big Bang Theory and evolution. Like these are like sort of there, but they still don't explain like the actual origin part.
Yeah.
How it
The
actually
chicken and the
happened.
egg scenario.
Yeah, and then we also agreed that simulation theory is just covert theism.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, if you believe there is a God and he's controlling everything, cool, just say that. But if you go, no, man, we're all in a simulation, there is no God, you're just being a fucking moron.
No
Just
fun.
beating around the bush.
Funny thing when we were talking about like consciousness and like the kind of brain mapping, and as I said about if we even achieve consciousness, that would be proving one of the trifecta. I forget his name, which is funny, but still, simulation theory is a farce. It's diet theism more than agnostic theism is.
Just admit there's a God already. Join my club.
Yeah.
We don't have that many
I
members.
see so many people that unironically believe in simulation theory, and it makes me want to strangle
Some
them.
people believe the earth is flat, okay? Like,
They're beyond hope. We can't fix them.
I mean,
people stormed the fucking Capitol for a president. Come on now.
actually, the little quick tidbit: the first time I ever met a flat earther, he wrote down on a little strip of paper, kind of like the size of a fortune cookie, a YouTube link. That
How does he wait? He remembered like the whole like
Yes.
hyperlink.
Yes.
What kind of insane flat Earth people do you talk to, David?
It's their religion, bro.
Back when I worked at my old job.
Wait, the DJ?
Yes.
Oh, hell.
Not the one that
Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
looks like a flat earther.
he is. And I'm just saying, if your best thing's a YouTube video, you have more explaining to do. That's almost as bad as a Wikipedia article.
I mean, at least religions have books.
yeah.
Like, well thought out first. Not too many spelling issues.
They have hundreds of books.
Not too many grammar issues. At least they got a book. You got a fucking YouTube link.
I feel triggered right now. I've done a lot of research and use YouTube links as sources.
Yeah,
but
but-
those generally actually are.
But
like,
that's not your
those are
only
like-
source.
Those are like meta sources.
And they
Like they have sources within
they're
them.
kind of aggregation of all the sources they've looked, because they'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, well,
Oops.
so and so says this, which I don't mind,
They're
but
more like research.
no, this was
videos.
just one person talking, no sources, no quotes,
Oh.
nothing.
Oh yeah, that's inexcusable.
All right. If
It's as bad as a Wikipedia article about sources for a college paper.
if someone manages to prove to me the earth is flat, I will go join a Southern Baptist church. I'll start singing in the choir. All right. Because everything's going to be wrong then. But back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, I just think it's probably impossible for science to answer questions such as how or why did the Big Bang occur.
Yeah, and then even if they answer it, there's always what happens before that. Well,
Well, yeah, I mean,
And-
it's just an infinite regress.
And there's always
Yeah.
healthy skepticism.
But I mean, I don't think you can explain like, okay, like if everything that exists was once condensed into a tiny singular particle that just exploded one day, how do you get? Was there space before that? Was there time? How do you know?
did all of this stuff happen beforehand?
Why did it happen?
Where was this?
Where was this?
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg scenario.
And
But-
like that's the kind of thing you cannot observe because it's in the infinite past.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah, it's definitely one of those you got to be there. Like,
Yeah.
bro, you missed it.
yeah.
Imagine being the one guy missing the universe being created. You'd feel like a real loser.
Anyway, I think the evidence points to something outside of our universe that had or has power over the establishment of our existence, because time and space can't create itself. That's redundant. So I think the existence of life and the universe ultimately points to a creator of life and the universe. Which, I mean, obviously we
Because
had
they're the
episodes
only
on that.
person
but,
that can make nothing into something.
yeah.
Aliens.
But who created them?
We have to find them and ask them.
Okay, now that's
If
another
aliens exist.
that's another rabbit hole.
That's a different episode, which we may or may not do.
Both of those are different episodes. Who created God?
No, it's not. I already answered that question.
Who created the aliens? Who created God?
Who created God is like if you come up like, okay.
Well,
If any skeptical person is like, I got him, and goes up to like a Christian or a theist, and they're like, oh yeah, who created God? They're immediately going to facepalm.
That's the point, because he is the beginning.
Yeah.
He's an omnipresent being. He's outside of space and time. He's in God.
Yeah, I'm glad you remembered that. Because I think you did like legitimately. You weren't like I got to figure it out. You're going to be like, well, who created the source of the creation? And
to get an answer for the people.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that much of a fucking idiot.
Oh, so you weren't actually you just wanted to know.
Yeah. Though I
you were
said
just
that
testing me.
Because if I believe in a God, it is an omnipresent being. It's always has and always will. Whether or not it has a hand to play here, but the idea of a God is that it always has, always is, always will.
This is
unless you're in Greek or Roman, and then you can birth like a fucking god out of another god.
Yeah, but
no one believes in those anymore.
Yeah,
they were cool though. Crazy stories. Bunch of banging.
Kind of a side story. This past week, I went through my old college notes on ancient Christianity and comparative religion. If you want, I can bring that over and just let you. I mean, you may not understand some of it because I was writing notes from like a slideshow. But if you want to look at them,
I'll read it.
Oh, making notes from a slideshow is the worst because you want to write it all down.
Well, they were both online classes, so I could pause them.
Oh, okay.
And stuff, but
that's better. Yeah. I've had to write down stuff.
See, I used to like teachers writing stuff down. Like, I hated when they would just talk and never shut the fuck up. I was like, write this shit down so I can get it.
Or they just hang you a pamphlet.
All right, basically. We're on a rabbit hole. I gotta stop this. You get on tangents.
God.
All right.
It's been a long week.
Where do you guys? Let's wrap up this one. Where do you guys think the origins of life in the universe are coming from? Michael?
We already know.
Are you gonna say I don't know?
Could be either way.
But
or a mixture of both.
As
again,
an agnostic theist, would you say, even if the Big Bang
you're a theist?
Yeah, even
aren't you?
Because
did God?
Just because I believe in a God does not mean I believe in a God, an all-controlling God. I can believe in a God that has the power of control, but just lets this do its thing and see what happens.
Well, that doesn't get into like pantheism or versus, panentheism or anything like that. Like this is just like if God created life in the universe doesn't mean that God is or is not involved with that universe. It just means that he created it. So, I mean, that doesn't put you on either side of the fence with that. And the other thing, I would think you would agree with these arguments, pretty much all of them, because they're theistic arguments. They're really helping your position, to be honest. They're not specifically Christian arguments.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Christians use them because they're theists, but literally any theistic religion, like I saw a debate the other day where a Muslim is using the moral argument against an atheist, and I mean it's one of the more popular ones, which is why I started off with it. But
yeah, I mean, with origins of like the universe and life, it's more a lot of religions. Well, even if they don't believe the same God, there's at least that. Oh yeah, this
everything that exists is contingent.
The higher power made it, or the higher power had some part in it.
Yeah. Well, basically, the way the contingency argument is going is everything comes from something, and it is just going to infinitely regress until you get to the infinite past, and then what is that first cause?
Yeah.
And logically, you have to deduce that it has to be at least powerful enough to create all of those things in the first place.
So he might just like flip the switch and be like, oh yeah, it's created, and just sit back. Or he could be like actively working on it,
Because I think it's a little bit absurd to assume that time and space created itself, life created itself, consciousness created itself. That's a lot of coincidences.
But time and space are...
borderline miraculous. Go ahead.
Time is a measurement, human creation,
Not necessarily.
used to explain how long or forward something goes or takes. It is ever changing. But you have to be able to distinguish that.
Are you one of those people that says time doesn't exist?
No, it exists.
So where did it come from?
Yeah, where does time come from, Michael? Who gave us the...
We are the ones that recognize the ideas of time.
Yeah.
We're the ones who gave measurements to the
But
ideas
who created
of
the
time.
things that show us what time is?
Are you gonna say time is a construct?
I was thinking the word. I was about to say.
That's where he's going with
My
this.
brain forgets what the word construct means. What's the
A
word?
human invention to
Not-
explain a phenomenon.
Time.
So I mean, and I think we had, I don't know if this was on recording or not, but I think we said, I don't know if this is on recording or not, but
yeah, I think I made a shitty joke about it
we basically
because
said
it's like the common argument against everything. Well, it's a human construct.
yeah, construct. When someone says, "Oh, it's a construct,"
the
well, that's just a cop
representation
out
of
to
it
not
is a
actually talk about.
construct. The idea of it is ever going. So it always has.
Okay.
Michael with the big Dr. Pepper claws.
Yeah. I'm just confused about everything, everybody.
All right. Well, where do you think origins of the life come from in the universe?
I have no
We need to wrap
idea.
this one up.
Still
You don't
figuring
know.
that one out.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Theist is confused.
Okay.
Brain's on fire.
All right.
Hey, you know where I fall?
Yeah.
Go because I don't necessarily know when it started because there's many different theories revolving around it, and to be there would be impossible time travel.
Do any of your theories have a god in them?
No.
Of course not. He's an
Yeah.
atheist.
Yeah. There's some cool theories, and hopefully with like the exploration of Mars and stuff, we could have a better grasp of those theories. But it will be an infinite, painful struggle to figure it out.
Do you think if we colonize enough Earth, enough of the universe, we might find God? Could he just be out there somewhere, just chilling?
If he's out there chilling, I want him to sit right here and have a conversation with us because I gotta rethink everything.
Bro, he's past Pluto. What you talking? Could God be in space, Bailey?
Are you asking me seriously, or
Maybe God is space.
Could a physical representation of God be in space, just looking over?
Look, I don't know
everything?
where Jesus went. I mean,
He gone.
according to the gospel accounts, he just left. He just went up in the clouds. He could technically still be somewhere part of the material universe. And if we're going to say Jesus is God, sure, you could find God in that sense. Maybe he's just hanging out there. Maybe he just got far enough from Earth and yeeted into another dimension.
Maybe he had to go save another planet. Maybe that's why
heaven-
Mars isn't here
Maybe
no more.
heaven is a material place that is just really far out, or maybe it's an alternate dimension.
But then
I
that
don't
falls
know
into
the answer to
the
these
God
questions.
is an alien thing, and that gets weird.
But the
quick.
idea that we can just find God is probably absurd.
Not us
because
find
I
him,
think-
because he would have to want you to find him for you to find him.
I don't.
But don't we always find God
I
in
think
the
he's-
Bible? The physical representation?
Yeah, you can find a physical version of him, but
Isn't
if
that
we're
all
t- well, here's the thing. Let me clarify.
But most of them
this
are
is this is a
spiritual.
rabbit hole, but I'm gonna wrap this up. When we say God, generally we're referring to, if we're talking about the Christian God, we're generally referring to God the Father. Previous generations have made distinctions, but if we're talking about going to find God the Father, probably not going to find him. He's probably that immaterial thing that we refer to as God.
He's got to want you to find him.
Now, if you find a physical being that is God, that would be Jesus. And he can exist in the material universe because he has.
So he could just be chilling out there near Pluto.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think he is. I think
Maybe, yeah, as Mark said, maybe he's a superhero that needs to go save other places.
pretty certain.
That I would die laughing if
Pretty certain he referenced when he, after his resurrection, that when he was speaking to Mary, he said, "Don't touch me, I have not returned to the Father yet." So that implies that he was going to return to the Father, who is not of the material universe, so therefore he's probably not hanging out in the material universe. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next thing, because this is a rabbit trail. The paranormal episode. We agree that assuming the paranormal exists, it must necessarily lead to something beyond naturalism and potentially to God. But some of us agree, some of us disagree on the existence of paranormal.
Yeah.
Ghosties are real.
Yeah, and I mean, and that just falls into the, as I haven't experienced it, until I have some sort of experience that would change my viewpoint, it would not exist.
Let's start doing some occult shit.
David.
Yes.
Like, let's sacrifice a goat.
No.
If you applied that logic
That's a
to
waste of a
anything
goat.
else, that would be problematic. Because if you say, my grandfather's motorcycle doesn't exist because I haven't experienced it, and then he drives past, and you say, well, I haven't experienced it, so
Well, I
it doesn't
experienced him
exist.
driving past, so therefore, it exists.
So until you see it, it doesn't exist.
And
All right, let me ask you. Here's a real question.
for like the
If a
spiritual,
tree falls in the forest and no one was around to see it, did it fall in the forest?
who knows?
All right, that explains it. He's one of those people.
But
Have you ever had someone you care about get murdered?
Not that I know of.
Do people get murdered?
Yeah.
So therefore,
I mean, at our
You
old,
haven't
you haven't
experienced it.
experienced it,
At our old
but people
jobs.
get shot every day.
well,
It's a physical aspect.
well,
There are ghosts among us.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
my frustration is I literally showed you evidence, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I didn't experience it, so it's not real.
Well,
I mean, I know there are like hardcore skeptics out there like
Yeah.
that, but I mean, I feel like people are a little bit more reasonable if they're open to the evidence. And if they see evidence and they're like, it's not evidence to me because I don't experience it.
you know what? Let's just take you to a haunted ass place and lock you in there all night.
let's do it.
I mean, we'll do it. I need to talk to the
I
team.
need some like real evil spirits too to really get to him. He doesn't believe in him. He'll be fine.
I don't know about that.
That's not how Bailey believes. That's not what Bailey believes.
You might see
I
who
wouldn't
David
wanna-
comes back as.
I don't want him to come back, maybe.
What I just like,
I mean, I don't no.
I like get really
Blindfold him so he doesn't know how to get back home. So when we drop him off, he's just there.
Michael's trying to get David possessed, is what he's saying.
Not necessarily, just
Like,
the tip.
You just said there have to be evil spirits.
So
that
like
doesn't mean they're going to possess
so like
you.
a diet possession.
You know, they're just taking him out for dinner. Not hitting a home run yet.
Get to know me stage.
Yeah. Maybe give him a little kiss on the cheek.
They swipe right on my ghost Tinder.
Yeah. You know, hop in your DMs, you get connected,
Okay.
and they ghost you.
Oh my god. All right. Half of this episode is just garbage.
But ghosts are real.
Ghosts are real.
Yeah, David.
And Michael,
The different types of spirits, that's up to your personal belief. But the idea of ghost is real. Ghosties are real.
Michael, I think this is one of the arguments you agree with, that the supernatural is basically evidence for God.
Evidence of a higher power, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean even
Wow, we got him on one of them at least.
Yeah.
At least he agrees with one of them.
and
I
even
believe there's a God.
agreed on that.
Or a higher power.
Well, I mean, I'm giving you all of these arguments are bolstering your position. You should take them all and run,
Yeah.
not just be like, I don't know about that one.
Just as this, you don't know.
Because then you're
what to
more
name
on
it.
his side when you're saying like, well, this one doesn't work. This
Yeah.
one doesn't work. I don't like that one.
I mean,
So are you coming
I'm
out
just
as
confused on a lot of this shit, if you want to be honest.
Are you
here.
coming out as the atheist, Michael? You gonna join the?
When are you going to admit you secretly
Jackson.
believe in God, but you talk to him every night
He's
and
just-
cry?
David's just trolling us.
And
He's
usually,
actually way more devout
Yeah,
than
I'm
any of
into
us.
long con. I've been doing this for.
David is secretly going to become a monk one day.
could see it. That's the bad part. He's the type.
What? How our family balds get? I mean, I could do like monk stuff in the forest, just chilling.
I mean, and you don't have to worry about anyone
meditating.
asking if you're going to get married or have kids. Dude, that sounds kind of baller. But, you know, no touching yourself.
I don't do that anyway.
All right, so to summarize, Michael believes in spirits,
Ghosties are real.
and he thinks that is evidence for a higher power. Is
Ghosties
that right?
is real.
Okay.
Yep. And I don't believe in spirits, but I do believe in the idea that if there are spirits, there must be something more. So I agree.
So premise,
Hook us up.
he agrees with the conclusion, but not the premise.
Yeah.
Basically.
So
Gotcha.
anybody listening that has a real haunted place, hook us up. We need some permission.
I mean, I know
I
a
mean,
few. I just have
also
to
worked
get
at
in
a supposedly haunted hotel at night.
there at night.
The only scary things I got were weird propositions.
All right. Well, my recap of the argument for that episode was basically I believe that since the supernatural can be personally experienced and empirically verified, that it is irrefutable evidence that the supernatural at the very least exists. And the existence of evil spirits implies the existence of good spirits. Without one another, they are simply arbitrary. So it is logical to deduce that there must be a rational moral source for these entities, which I believe is best explained with the existence of God. And we all nod our head, but nobody can hear it.
Ghosties are real. Ghosties real. See, I like to keep it simple for the people. Ghosts are real. Accept it. And we need to teach David ghosts are real.
Yeah. Yeah.
The one time y'all can gang up on me.
Hey, let's just like put bed sheets over her head and cut out like a face and spook him real good when he's sleeping.
That's not how it works.
Dave,
I'll be
Michael,
thinking you're trying to spook me with something
We
else.
play some ghost while we do it. Scooby-Doo music.
All right. Next thing. Love and beauty. We agree that we perceive love as a transcendent experience, but differ on whether or not the implications of that experience point to God. We also agree that beauty is subjective, and pretty much all of us disagree on where it comes from. I think that was, if that was not exactly where we are, let
Yeah,
me know.
because
But
I was sitting there arguing the like real reasons why beauty would be used in evolution and how it has in love as a more safe approach in evolution, or why our brains work that way, because it's better for the pack. Yeah, but that's just an idea.
Yeah. And like as I kind of gave
I gave the most atheist answer.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I kind of followed you with like that mount, like you see the beautiful mountain, you see the trees, they're beautiful, you see this calm, beautiful place. Oh yeah, it would be nice to have a little cabin in the woods and just live there, because it seems like you'll do pretty fine there.
But also beauty can be what
Yeah.
we want, not what we need. I think love more comes for the what we need. But beauty helps.
Yeah.
It's hard to love someone with an ugly face. If their face is beautiful to you, it's a lot easier. I mean, let's be real. People just get arranged marriage and be married to one ugly motherfucker. And you don't get love out of that because they don't like each other.
We saw the old European kings and queens.
It was ugly. But where's your thoughts on this, Bailey?
Because I mean that was a weird rabbit hole-y episode.
yeah, we did go on a bunch of different directions. Basically, when we are in love with someone, we start to think in a transcendent matter. So we may think further in the future than we normally would. We might perceive ourselves differently, and we're going to act out of respect for an individual person more than we would normally act out for anyone else. So what I'm getting at is love can be a covert way of making us think and act very existentially, whereas otherwise we wouldn't do that. So my question is, why is that the case? And I believe that is one of the ways that God communicates with us.
See, I just remember you trying to use me as an example in my name. I'm like, that is a bad idea, my friend. You must not know me and my relationships.
Yeah.
Well,
I've seen it.
Well, I was just saying that, like, obviously, I mean, you're probably, most people, what I was getting at with that part was most people don't think of love as a chemical reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, you might, you know,
I mean,
a
even,
scientist might
even
believe
if it
that's
is,
what
there's
it
more
is.
behind it.
And
Yeah,
you
but I
can
mean-
witness the changes when someone sees something that causes that reaction.
Yeah, look at their dick.
Yeah.
I
Just
mean-
get a thermal gun.
I mean, people's body temperature raises, their eyes, I forget, they dilate.
Yep.
They want to mate.
Yeah. And some people, as I said, butterflies in their stomach, the body kind of does a weird opiate-like reaction.
I don't know what kind of love you guys are in. I wish I had that feeling.
Well, it's,
All right.
yeah. And then there's like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin that plays in other things, but also plays in like feelings of love and whatnot.
All right. Well, the other thing was with beauty. I think it's kind of arbitrary and pointless under the naturalistic worldview because, sure, it may be nice to spend time with beautiful people or listening to beautiful music or looking at beautiful art, but what is the evolutionary purpose of beauty? If God is an artistic creator being, wouldn't it make much more sense to believe that we share in these traits with him?
And I remember saying beauty, especially back in older times, was really depicted on what was a healthier, safer lifestyle. They used to like bigger women. I mean, they had money and they had food every night.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might like big old boobies. Better to nurse with.
Yeah, and
At least in the animals' eyes, because they're seeing it as like, oh, this person's able to eat, have this figure.
take care of their kids.
Oh, this man is muscular. Like, God, what's that dude on the Old Spice commercial? You know, the really ripped one who was in Everybody Hates Chris. People would look at that like, he can survive. He can supply. That's beautiful. It might get twisted over the years.
Yeah, I mean, and
But
love
it's
varies
the most-
culture to culture.
Yeah. To the
On what our
most
perceptions are.
perceived safe route. Want someone who's fit, looks like they eat good, looks like they're mentally together to raise a child. And that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also big, like nowadays, it's a lot about communication and being
But
able
where does it come from? That's what
Yeah.
that's what the whole thing
the
is.
need
Like,
to
where does it
continue
come
the
from?
bloodline.
yeah,
The need to survive as a pack.
2 is 1 and 1 is none.
If you are one that does not want to continue the bloodline, it's pack survival.
Okay,
There's
you
power
can
in
pull the
numbers.
evolution card, but what happens when you are in love and then you jump in front of a car and then you die and then that doesn't promote life because you die?
Well, it promoted a fucking idiot jump in front of a car.
Yeah.
There's not
jump
gonna
in
be
front
more people
if
jumping
you jump in front of a car
Yeah.
to protect your significant other because
But-
you're in love with them and then you die, that's
Hold
not
up.
promoting the
Are we
evolution.
talking about us as a man, or
I'm talking about,
us
like-
as a unisex being
I'm talking
to
about,
another
like,
unisex being?
I'm talking about like a hypothetical scenario where, I don't know, a woman's crossing the street, it's the man's wife or whatever, he runs out in the street, pushes her out of the way, but he gets hit by the car.
yeah,
That's the bearer of life.
yeah,
We're just the vessel
And-
to put the life in.
and in the
After the baby is born, we don't have to deal with it. Usually the mothers deal with
Yeah,
it.
and in the-
That's why.
But-
you don't see a woman pushing a man
Listen.
out of the way.
and in the
I
idea
didn't
of,
say they had kids.
yeah, And then the idea of evolution, there's the kind of like remnants of what could have been useful beforehand that now is very flawed. It could be like for pack survival, no woman bears child, so therefore men go first. I mean, we kind of still have that with like war and stuff.
Or pack survival.
We just do things that are counterintuitive to our survival when we're in love.
Not always.
I mean, not always, but sometimes we do some stupid shit when we're in love to protect that other person, and that doesn't always benefit our survival as a whole.
But it benefits the group survival.
Yeah. Evolution isn't
Not
about
if you die.
Evolution is not about the singular, it's about the species as a whole.
Yeah, but if you might have a better chance of living jumping in front of that car if there's a little skinny old woman versus a big old dude. I guarantee that car's going to feel that dude a lot more. He's more likely to survive.
You're changing the scenario. What?
But you didn't give me an equal scenario now.
Yeah.
I didn't specify anything. I'm just saying, let's put this in a syllogism. All right. The evolutionary, the logic is, if love exists, it is to promote survival.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the problem then is, if someone is acting out of love and they do something that doesn't promote survival, that would seem to be a contradiction, is what I'm getting at.
If you walk past the pool and a kid's drowning, you're going to pull that little bastard out.
How is that?
Hold on.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Does that help your survival any? Does that help your clan survival any? Do you love that baby?
Probably. I don't know. It depends if I know him. But I mean, it's an act of love, I guess.
Act of love for your
But who
humankind as a species.
Okay.
But who can fight the water better? You or the baby? You obviously, you just pull the baby out of it. You're not drowning.
Yeah.
But why would you put yourself in that risk?
Yeah.
Because of love, I guess.
And
see, but that's what I'm saying, is it can go both ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be both for
A lot
kind of that evolutionary trait, but one, especially with say like cars and stuff, it doesn't necessarily.
The only thing you're able to process is that is an innate threat. You're not able to necessarily think about the repercussions.
Yeah. Pretty much it's like, oh yeah, threat. Me, man, save.
It's like someone jumping in front of a bullet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be talking in circles.
Yeah,
but
the technology. Yeah, because it's also putting like modern technology towards something that is very primitive in ideals.
Right.
Evolution.
All right, so let's wrap up on the love and beauty thing.
Yeah, we were getting on the same tangent we did in the episode.
Yeah.
Just slightly different.
Yeah, so where do you guys think love and beauty come from? I think you both said basically evolution.
Yeah, from what we see.
But beauty is arbitrary.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't point to evolution and say...
Well, I think I said like...
No, yes, you can. To what you find beautiful. You can point to evolution.
It could have...
How does that help your survival?
Beautiful features are for most desirable mates.
Yeah.
If you didn't perceive beauty, you would still mate.
Yeah, but you might have some fucked up baby.
You don't need beauty to mate.
You might have a baby with, like, no legs. That baby ain't gonna live.
What I'm getting at is, if we did not perceive beauty, we would still mate. We don't need beauty to mate.
Yeah, but then
I guess
that doesn't play a necessary role in our survival.
I think
in evolution it does.
I mean, look at
beauty does not.
Look at peacocks. The most beautiful mate first. They get the best mate.
The biggest, the strongest, the healthiest.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. The ones with the healthier genes, eye color, hair color, things like that.
But the problem is, you're saying if we did not perceive beauty, we would not evolve. And there's a problem with that because that's not true. If we did not perceive beauty, we would still mate.
See, the issue is we can't prove without beauty we would not evolve.
Look at certain animals.
And then
Hold up. Have you seen what some people call beautiful?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's beautiful of them, though. I ain't knocking it.
I mean, they
Right.
might have some ugly kids, but hopefully them kids gonna be healthy.
I believe love can come from more than just evolution, but I think beauty is largely evolution based.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I know that's as backwards what most people would say.
I mean, and it does also fall into our cultural and social perceptions and what's beautiful as well. Like it could have to start in evolution, but we, as we've
Yeah, society probably plays a little bit of a role.
yeah
Booty's made a comeback.
Because, I
That's all I'm
mean-
gonna say.
yeah, I mean, good example.
Fat asses.
Back in like the 90s was very skinny. Now we want women to be thick and men to be muscular with a nice haircut.
Actually, now
beard.
people want dad bods.
Yeah.
Yeah, or dad. Well, dad bods is like
Look.
around
Evolution.
here.
He
Dad
looks
bods
like
is
he could raise a
popular.
kid. He looks like he drinks a 30 rack with his boys at the football game, comes back and plays with the baby.
and takes his kid fishing.
And takes kid. He looks like he's gonna be a good dad. Put a baby in
All
me.
right.
Yeah, but that could be more like imitate.
Okay, so basically, you guys both say basically evolution. But Michael says it could be, love could be something higher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you say basically evolution for both.
yeah.
Okay. All right, well, basically, I think with our conclusions is the only argument that either of you agree with is the paranormal argument Michael agrees with.
Yes.
And both the rest of you both disagree with the rest of them.
Yeah, and I don't disagree on
Or
the,
aren't
yeah.
convinced, at least.
Yeah, I'm not convinced.
Undecided.
I agree on like
Agnostic.
if there is a God, it would make sense. But as I'm an atheist, I don't believe there is one. So,
Well, that's the point of these episodes.
Yeah.
Because, and I've mentioned this before, but basically, I wanted to present you guys with some philosophical arguments for God's existence, because these are not obviously an exhaustive list. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more, but you'll at least now know like some of the reasons philosophers have used to point to, or theists have used to point to the existence of God.
theistic philosophers.
Yeah. So this next statement is not really going to be related to you guys because you pretty much disagree with all the arguments, or don't agree, or agnostic. Undecided. But if you were to agree with all of these arguments for God's existence, here's the kind of picture of God we would have. God is a necessary, rational source for morality, a conscious and vastly intelligent being, a highly powerful and transcendent creator of all life and the material existence, a supernatural/transcendent being, an artistic being that appreciates artistic perceptions, and a being that is the source of love, feels emotion, and can be experienced personally. So that is the generic theistic God based off of those arguments, and then from there, obviously, you can get more specifically into certain religious arguments, which we will do in future episodes. But I would say that probably starts to look more like the Judeo-Christian God.
Yeah. Also, you should do people's Tinder profiles. 'Cause that was beautiful. That was very, very solid.
I guess. Thanks.
Not that I need a Tinder, but if I ever do, I know who's doing my damn bio.
No, you actually don't want me to do your bio, Mike.
I'll
Be
be-
too honest.
I'll be like a 45-year-old dude on Tinder. Just depressed because everything's left me.
And then you ask me to make a dating webpage for you so you can link it.
All right. Well, as we're wrapping up, I want to ask you guys, how have your views/understanding of God changed since the beginning of this series? Or have they? Basically, how have things changed since we started talking about the philosophical arguments?
As we've been going through with everything, like for me, still an atheist, but it's kind of reassure, like if there was a God, it makes a lot of sense. It fills in everything.
You at least understand why
Yeah.
people would believe
It's
in God.
kind of how like when I was trying to be religious, how I wanted to view God as.
Yeah, because it's kind of like your roommate came in here the other day. He's like, "Oh, you're one of those God people." He didn't seem to understand why someone would believe in God, and
Yeah, and then
here's why.
Yeah, and then you
here's
had
like
a
it
cool
outlined.
conversation.
Yeah,
But he always got to do a little jab.
yeah.
I mean, it's
I wasn't offended.
It's like, oh, you're one of those fucking atheists.
Yeah.
No one ever talks about my people because we barely exist at this point, or we're not honest enough with ourselves to say we exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people try to choose a side.
I'm spiritual, bitch.
Yeah. If you don't know, don't choose a side and do your research. Figure out what's right for you.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter where you fall.
Because
A lot of people gonna be wrong in the end.
hopefully you figure it out, but if not, if there's a God, as Michael says, hopefully he understands.
Yeah. So what has Michael learned? Has Michael learned anything?
I've got a better, more informational understanding of where you come from, and even if you're making an argument not for yourself but for other people with certain philosophies and stuff, it's more of a better understanding of where all that comes from and how that comes from, and how some of it is bullshit.
Yeah.
But how, and understanding how people get in certain mindsets and schools of thought that they believe certain things. I'm still agnostic as hell, but I have a little bit better understanding of the sides.
Gotcha.
Instead of just being like, this is what I learned, this is what I've studied, this is what I know about everybody else.
Yeah.
And
So you can kind of like, a lot of these were, obviously these are theistic arguments, so I would think you would agree with them, but I feel like this would kind of equip you if somebody comes up to you and say, all right, well, you're an agnostic, okay, so why do you believe in God? Yeah. If you could point to these arguments and outline them and say,
polytheistic?
instead of just being like, well, I just believe because I do. That's one thing I get annoyed with certain Christians that are just want to take everything on faith. I just think they're lazy because they don't do the research and realize that like there are reasons to believe. Because I didn't know that growing up, and I didn't know that until I started doing research, and this is obviously part of that.
You're the kind of person you don't like because you didn't do your research yet.
And I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of people won't word out like they're, because it's one thing if you might not be the most well versed, but if you can at least point to some experience you've had, something where you can grasp like, this is why I believe in God as an idea, or the Judeo-Christian God, or fucking in Hindi would believe in certain gods. If you can tie something to it, it holds more weight than a line just floating in the air.
It goes back to what we were saying early in the show. Basically, have a reason for what you believe and be able to explain it.
Yeah, and be honest.
Yeah.
You don't have to give me some grandiose, oh, I almost got killed. No, you just say, I fucking wrecked my bike and I thought I was going to die. I felt like I survived for a reason. Give me something.
Yeah.
But you don't have to oversell it either. Just your honest, truthful thoughts, and have a reason for what you say. Don't just say shit.
Open that positive dialogue.
Yeah, like this is, except for with David, because he's fucking atheist.
Yeah.
Everybody, please note, we don't hate David. We just hate David.
Well, speaking of David, I'm going to roast David here for a second because
roast me.
One thing David said a few times in some of these episodes, I think specifically he said it in the Love and Beauty episode, was something along the lines of, don't overthink it, don't worry about it, when talking about, like, where does Love and Beauty come from? Where does this come from? Where does this come from?
Highly abstract stuff.
And I would strongly disagree with that, because when you don't think about it, that's why you remain an atheist.
I think, like, as I was saying, it's like in my daily life, I don't tend to think like super deeply and stuff, but when it's more introspective, I'll start to think about it. I think that's kind of what I was trying to say. It's like, because in like daily life, it's not kind of natural to think these highly abstract things like while doing schoolwork, while doing the, you know, the mundanity of life does not suit itself well
Yeah.
for super introspective thoughts.
Yeah, and that may be just a difference in personality. For me, I have to have like a period of time in the morning and the evening just to like decompress and think about shit. Because if I don't, it starts building up and it causes problems. So for me, like I do have to have time to think
and
about
I mean
this.
that decompression, like because like when I get home, I have to decompress, but like I'll play my guitar, I'll do something and kind of de-stress myself, and because like introspection and stuff like that, those like super high level high abstraction is a little more stressful for me because it's asking a lot of questions, a lot of stuff that will I ever find an answer? I don't know.
So you don't want to think about it.
Well, yes and no. Like in day-to-day life, I'd probably be like way more stressed out about everything, or I could be a full-on nihilist.
I feel like
But
being an atheist would stress me out. Thinking that basically everything's pointless and you're going to die and it doesn't matter.
I mean, it's like when we had my interview, like my way of life is like, even though I won't exist afterwards, I still leave an impact. And it's like like the scout rule, when you go to a campsite, leave it better or at least the same from whence you came. And that's kind of how I live day to day, because even though there's not a spiritual impact on my actions, there's still that reality that whatever I do has something that it can cause something in someone's life for better or for worse.
In the book of David, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
You know, it's ironic both of you guys have biblical names, but neither of you are Christian. Meanwhile, the one guy on the podcast that doesn't have a Christian name is actually a Christian.
I mean, I share the same name with my dad. I wouldn't say it's too crazy at this point.
Yeah.
But you know what's crazy? I decompress coming home from work. And like on the drive I'm usually dead. I'm not thinking about anything, but then I come home, I sit at my desk, and then the lights come on. It's like, oh shit, there's a lot to think about now.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, well, let's wrap up this episode. What are you guys' final conclusions as we close this series of episodes out?
Well, simulation theory, just say there's a God already. Kind of got a better understanding of where I stand versus where you guys stand. I'm still an agnostic, but I will play devil's advocate on either side. And I can at least understand and gather where you guys come from with things. Whether or not I believe it or not doesn't matter. At least I can understand and visualize where your thought process is. Even David's. It's just a void. Just a void.
Filthy atheist.
Just
it's been a while
void.
since we've called him the filthy
Yeah,
atheist.
you fucking
What a
atheist.
Y'all need to call me it more often.
Dirty.
I think he
I
likes
need
it.
Filthy,
I need it, like,
disgusting,
20 times next
worthless,
episode.
godless
The
atheist.
Donald Trumps of religions. No, never mind.
Please stop.
I take that back. I'm sorry about that. That was awful.
All right.
You're
well,
more like the George H.W. Bush. There's just nothing there.
all right.
I like the paint pretty pictures, though.
I'm gonna make Michael stop talking now. What are your final thoughts, David?
Pretty much the
Same thing as Michael.
Like, gain a better kind of additive thought process. Michael's chaotic mess, and you're very clear, concise with what you believe in. You've done your research, and like even like beforehand when we've had our own personal conversations about it, and it's like we kind of all agree on like respect others people's thoughts, and I guess this podcast is really a good exemplary note on that. Especially in these days where everyone wants to get up to each other's necks and start fighting.
Yeah.
Can I say one comment? Respecting other people's thoughts. Sorry, simulation theory people. I don't respect your thoughts.
Well, you can respect the ideas, but the beginning of that one falls. You're just like, yeah,
there's no agnostics.
There
I mean,
has-
there's no atheist.
there's a higher
simulation
power
theory.
at play. So there's no atheist there's no atheist in simulation. There's a higher power. So you kind of can agree a little bit.
That's a good point. I want to use that against atheists that think simulation theory.
You said that actually.
I said that?
Yeah.
Deja
What?
vu.
Wow, I am
least in,
profound.
or-
Just pull me up.
It
I
might be
legit
on the
forgot.
episode, might be off the episode because I mean we went on a. Sorry about that.
That was
puppy.
the dog?
Yeah, that was Pupper. But yeah, and even though we disagree on the fundamentals, we agree like on certain things and kind of that unifying aspect of we don't believe the same thing, but we still have good intentions.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, you
I wish I had nice things to say about you guys. I'm just gonna roast David.
do it.
Yeah, you non-God believing looking at boy.
All right. Well, obviously, I knew where I stood coming into this. So I mean, like, I wasn't really convinced to that any of these arguments are faulty. I think atheism in particular has a couple of holes in its worldview.
Not a lot of holes.
Yeah,
A lot of
it's-
holes.
I feel like it's a stretch to believe in unless you are content with not having answers to questions of existence such as origins, morality, and supernatural experiences. Now, granted, it does supply some answers to some things, but to me, those answers are not satisfying, nor do they go deep enough.
Yeah, but I mean that's a human condition with like science and everything. Because it's just something we figure out. It's figuring out stuff as we go instead of, oh yeah, the beginning, God is the beginning, and it's like for atheists, it's fill in the gap to the beginning and then figure out the rest.
Yeah.
So it's a very different train of thought.
Yeah. For me, I think religion and philosophy kind of have ways of answering those questions in a more satisfying manner for me. And I think that creates a more holistic worldview when you couple that with science. So, I mean, I'm not going to rely solely on religion, and I don't think you should rely solely on science. I think when you take the best of science and you take the best of religion and philosophy and you put them together, you have a very holistic worldview that makes sense of most things.
They aid one another.
Yeah.
They
They
fill
work.
in the gaps where the other ones don't.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think that's pretty much it. You have anything else before we wrap up? I'm gonna tell everyone what we have coming up next.
It's been a hoot and a holler for these series of episodes. I can't really say I've changed my positions any, but I've learned a fucking lot.
Yeah,
Cool.
Love you guys.
All right. Well, basically, quick plug. Follow our social medias at Facing the Gates and send us an email at facingthegatespod
Yes.
at gmail.com if you want to get in contact with us and have comments or questions or just want to chat. I don't know.
Yeah,
Whatever.
or just look at the memes. I mean, Bailey roasted me pretty hard on that last one.
Oh, yeah.
That was a
Dude, they're great.
man.
You-
I'm having
or-
fun with the memes.
you-
not gonna
you
lie.
gotta
Or
be
just,
there.
just leave us a comment. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I can't. Was it last episode? Which it's been a couple episodes, hasn't it, since that comment?
Which one?
That weird one.
Bro, I loved it. It was just train of consciousness.
We'll talk about it after because I don't know what you're talking about.
But I love
The
all.
one you told me to look at.
The one about Michael. Michael's face when people say they believe in.
No. The comment on YouTube.
Oh.
Dude, I love the
gotcha.
comments and I love the questions.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Makes me
the
so
YouTube
happy.
comment.
Yeah, dude. If you follow us, leave comments, interact.
Yeah.
Like, we love it.
Yeah.
It's what we crave. It's like water for
Yeah.
plants.
I mean, that one, like, was a little weird, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Makes you think.
And
Yeah.
send us, make memes too, if you
Yeah.
feel like it.
Yeah.
Roast me.
Send us your memes and then
Send
I'll
me
post them
a
and then I
list
won't
of
have to
your
make
roast.
social media posts.
Yeah, roast all of us. I
Roast
don't
all of
care.
us.
Roast me especially.
All right. Well, anyway, real quick before we wrap up this episode, I just want to let you guys know there's not going to be an episode next week. We're going to take a break just because we're going to be starting a new series. Obviously, we did the interviews with everyone, and then we did the Arguments for God's Existence series of episodes. The next series of episodes we're going to do, being that I'm Christian, we're going to do a series called Evaluating Christianity. And we're basically going to start from where we left off. You know, the assumption is that
The
now
beginning of the universe.
well, the assumption starting out is we at least believe in God because we've
Yeah.
given arguments for that. And then we're going to get more specific into why Christianity as opposed to other religions, for example. And we're going to be doing some pretty cool, interesting discussions that I'm not going to spoil. But next week there will be no episode, but we will resume episodes the following week. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Feels like a dating show, but for religions.
Yeah, I guess.
I might find mine along the way.
Maybe you will.
He's the one that becomes the monk.
Michael is the bachelor.
Bailey.
The only religion on the table is Christianity. So
Or
Well, I mean, you
yeah.
could be explaining against some other religions.
Oh, you can have you can have a hamburger. You can have nothing at all.
well, maybe we'll become Christian by the end of it. Who knows? We'll see.
So I gotta find a whole new wardrobe. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
All right. Well, this has been a good episode. It's been surprisingly long. So we're gonna end it here. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Or if you're binge listening to this after the fact, we'll see you whenever you listen to it.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
All right. Love you. Goodbye.
Mwah. Bye.
Have a good day.
Y'all do. Y'all,
Goodbye.
Y'all have a good day, good week, good month, good year.
Hello. Goodbye.
Hello, hello. Goodbye, goodbye.
Shut up.